Hey, this is Ryan Rakhshan, and I am recording this video because I'll be hopefully teaching a crystalline glaze workshop at Material Things pretty soon, and I just wanted to kind of give prospective students an idea of the types of pots that they should bring to the class that will help them get the most success out of their work with that class. So we'll be working with glazes. This is kind of one of the nicer ones that will be growing crystals on the surface of the pots. And these glazes tend to work best with a light colored clay. So if you have like a white stoneware or a porcelain, those guys tend to work really well with these glazes. The details tend to get kind of lost on a darker clay body. So 182 is about as dark as I recommend for these glazes. If you go with like a brown clay or even like the wild porcelain that you guys get from Starworks, that might be a little bit too dark for this stuff to work super well. Another thing to keep in mind is that texture can really throw off the way that crystals grow. So I have a test tile right here, and hopefully it is reasonably clear that like I can get larger crystals on the flatter areas of the test tile, whereas in my texture here, it kind of disrupts the crystal growth. So in some ways you want large flat surfaces to be able to get these crystals to grow as big as possible. If we have too much texture on the surface of an object, it can kind of break up the way that the crystal grows. Let's see. Also, these glazes are really, really runny. So a lot of crystalline potters you guys may have seen in the past, like they'll have some kind of like an object that they fire another pot on top of, and then they'll like shatter the top pot off of this sacrificial object that's underneath. I personally don't have the patience to throw that way. If you want to try to make some of those glaze catchers, you can absolutely attempt to. I personally have found that they're hard to make. They need to be like really precisely sized to the pot that you're trying to fire on them. And they need to be like really smooth. Like you can't have any wiggle between the things. You shouldn't be able to like get a piece of paper between your pot and your glaze catcher, because that is just space where glaze can kind of get down in there and it can just fully fuse the two things together. So I have found that like unless you can throw really, really, really well and really, or you have a lot of patience to be able to like sand these things down to like match each other, I found that that's not a great solution for me. My personal preference, I have a couple different things that I've been trying. So this is one of the most successful ones. What I did here, this is not a great glaze, but this is very runny glaze, and there's 2 feet on this pot. And the real foot goes a little bit lower down than this little extra skirt right here. And there's like a divot in between the two. So as glaze drips down, that surface tension on the glaze isn't enough to pull it back up into this cavity here, and it just drips off the side of the pot, and we can put this pot up on a stilt so that glaze can drip down away from the surface of the pot and land in like a bed of silica or alumina or something like that. So I've had a lot of success with that. This is another one that's very similar where it's got that second foot and a lot of that glaze just dripped off. I do have to do a tiny bit of grinding like right here on this one, but it's generally not terrible. So if you can throw a pot with like a pretty thick bottom and trim an extra foot on the outer edge of that pot, that's a great way to do it. Other things to think about, you can honestly just make a pretty wide foot on the bottom of your pot. So like this mug, for example, has this big kind of catch down at the bottom right here, similar to this mug. And this is one of my less runny crystalline glazes, so it kind of got caught on that foot. I just have one little spot right here that needs to be ground down. But even if stuff does get down past that, like this is one that had a big foot, and there was a whole bunch of glaze that got down past there. And it's still not terrible to grind these down. Like here's one that's been ground down. I haven't really finished the grinding on this one. I've only done the coarsest grit of grinding on this pot. And it's really not too terrible. So you can grind things down pretty easily with some of these modern diamonds, sanding discs, and stuff like that. Yeah, so if you guys have any questions, let me know. I'll do my best to answer them before the start of the class. I will mention that this will not be like an in-depth chemistry class. I've run a lot of testing on these glazes. I know a lot about how they work, but I kind of want to just run a more simple, maybe like less in-depth class first to get my toes wet, my feet wet on teaching about this stuff. And then probably in the spring, I'll run another version of this class that will have a chemistry component and will involve applying and firing the crystalline glazes. So yeah, part of this class will be learning how to apply crystalline glazes to a pot for that you to have like a successful outcome. And then part of it will be loading the pots into the kiln because we have to load them in a very specific way. Like we're going to load the pots as a class. And then part of the class will be talking about the firing and understanding like what's happening during the firing because crystalline glazes require a very special firing. I've got my kiln going in the background right now. If you can hear that clicking, it's been on for like 16 hours now, and it's just soaking at 1700 degrees to grow crystals. Yeah, and then at the very end, we'll spend some time cleaning some pots up, and we'll be grinding off some of the crap on the bottom of the pots. So that you guys can get a feel for how that works, and I'll bring all of that equipment so you guys will be able to do that. So yeah, hopefully this class has a good turnout and we can run it. Very excited to teach about this sort of thing. These glazes have been kind of a subject of fascination for me for about a year now, and I'm really excited to start to share some of that. Also, please sign up for my class because I need to fix all this stuff. So if you sign up for my class, I can keep removing the rest of this chimney, and then I can have a ceiling in my glaze studio and like insulation because winter's coming. So I'd love to have insulation up there. And you can help with that. So hey, thanks. Appreciate it.